Arctic sovereignty is a strategic priority of our government. The world is changing. Our adversaries are increasingly emboldened. International institutions and norms that have kept Canada secure are now being called into question. Our government recognizes that while Canada must be strong in our partnerships, particularly NORAD, and today's announcements will strengthen our commitment to NORAD, well, that is true. We cannot and should not look first to others to defend our nation.
The Prime Minister announced a number of measures to boost that security and improve living conditions for some of those who reside in Nunavut. The CBC's Karina Roman joins us from Ottawa with more. So, Karina, take us through what Carney had to say about sovereignty and security.
Well, as you heard there, sovereignty and security go hand in hand, according to Mark Carney. And what he was essentially saying there is that we need to show that we can do it ourselves. Yes, we have NORAD. We are a partner in NORAD. We need to be a good partner in NORAD, which is our bilateral security arrangement with the U.S. But we also need to show that we can do it on our own and not look to others to defend us. And so there's a number of measures that he announced, things that clearly had been in the works for a while, but he is the one to announce them before he's even been Prime Minister for a week. So he said that the Arctic basically is Canada, that when we're talking about True North, Strong and Free, it really starts there. And so one of the things is, of course, to detect threats. And so he announced that Canada is going to partner with Australia on an early warning detection system in the Arctic. Basically, it's called an over-the-horizon radar technology system. It will require a $6 billion investment, which is part of an envelope of money previously announced to modernize NORAD, or Canada's part in NORAD. This system would provide coverage in terms of early detection of threats from the Canada-United States border into the Arctic. Then there is also money to increase Canadian Armed Forces' presence in the Arctic in terms of personnel, so a greater number of armed forces up north, but a sustained presence as well, talking about year-round presence, looking at a price tag of $420 million for that investment. And this comes on the heels of a previously announced investment by the previous Prime Minister or government this month that the federal government will build northern military operational support hubs in Iqaluit, Inuvik, and Yellowknife, with more to be announced on that as well. So this is all part of an endeavor to both show strength and show strength in the Arctic, but also on practical terms to actually be able to back that up with the machinery of the military.
And part of this plan also involves helping build northern communities. So what's the idea behind that, Karina?
Well, the Nunavut Premier, PJ Akiaguk, said that security depends on resilient communities. And Mark Carney said he agrees with that. And so part of the announcement is about the communities that are up there. And so $253 million towards the northern economy. That includes upgrading power plants, improving critical housing infrastructure, building and repairing hundreds of homes across Nunavut, and the help to complete the first phase of a hydroelectric facility. So that's the actual announcement. Now, Mark Carney said that strengthening the economy doesn't just mean, in the 150 kilometers of the most populous parts of Canada in terms of how near to the U.S. border it is. It does include all regions of Canada, and the North has a lot of potential that needs to be tapped into. And he talked about this being, as you heard earlier, symbolic and strategic. And it goes back to his mantra that he has now started to use quite a bit, which is this whole masters in our own house. So this is about creating a strong economy within our own borders, and that includes the North. And so Mark Carney was asked about that, especially, of course, in relation to the threats, economic threats, that Canada is facing from the U.S. Have a listen.
We are going to build Canada. Canada is strong, and it's going to get stronger. We can give ourselves more than anything that President Trump or other trade partner can take away. Okay? That's a basic point. And that if there is a misconception of that, in the United States. I'm not saying the president has that misconception, but if there's a misconception of that, we are going to disabuse that misconception.
Now, of course, Carney was asked about a potential phone call with Donald Trump. Well, it has not been scheduled yet, but it is what we hear in the works to be scheduled. And he was candid, saying no one phone call is going to be the magic phone call to end the troubles between the two countries, that any conversation he has with Donald Trump will be comprehensive. He talked about how he would convey that his priorities for Canada are the same as the president's priorities for the U.S., and to get that message across. He did not, at least verbally and publicly, agree with the previous prime minister that the actual goal for President Trump is to crush the Canadian economy in an effort to make it easier to annex us. He did not go down that road. So he seems to be taking a different tack when it comes to conversations he may or may not have with Donald Trump. One conversation he is planning to have is with the First Ministers. We are hearing a meeting is in the works, and I believe Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, earlier said the hope is that a First Ministers meeting could take place on Friday.
Karina, thank you. The CBC's Karina Roman, live in Ottawa.